Hey everybody, welcome back to my personal channel, Social's Awkward. My name is David Vidal, and these are the 10 things that you can do to prevent sabotaging your T-Rex. There's no doubt that Kawasaki is one of the best and most reliable platforms available in the motorcycle world. The 1400RR turned the industry on its ear, and if you combine that with the outstanding engineering team and craftsmanship of Campagna, it makes the T-Rex not just an exciting thrill ride, but a strong, dependable, and reliable machine that should be relatively trouble-free for the lifetime of the bike. In fact, most of the maintenance issues that owners experience are self-inflicted. So in no particular order, here are 10 things that you should consider to prevent self-harm and premature maintenance problems. These practices will ensure that you have a long and happy experience with your T-Rex, and as a bonus, retain the highest resale values possible. The first one is an easy one: revving a cold engine. Big no-no. We all love the sounds that our T-Rexes make, and there's a good chance you've been looking forward to your ride time, not to mention the fact that often you find yourself showing your machine off to curious onlookers, be it at gas stations or bars or wherever it is that you happen to be. And the temptation to rev your motor is almost inescapable. The bad news is that this is one of the fastest ways to ruin your motor. The good news is that it's an easy habit to break. You might be surprised how quickly your oil settles and cools off, leaving the most critical components naked and exposed. It takes more than a few seconds for the oil to fully circulate and candy coat these critical components. This is the kind of damage that takes years to accumulate, leaving the owner questioning the machine instead of their own bad practices. The longer your T-Rex is set, say overnight or a few hours in a parking lot, the cooler the oil and the longer this process takes. Your owner's manual instructs a 1 to 3 minute minimum warm-up time and a 6-minute maximum. That is, you should avoid sitting idle for periods over 6 minutes. But it doesn't stop there. After you allow for the appropriate warm-up period, you should keep your throttle inputs light for the first, 3 to 5 miles. Number 2, lots of short rides. If you're the kind of rider who goes from bar to bar or takes quick trips to run errands, there's a good chance that your engine never has the opportunity to fully warm up. Now, this is different from the engine oil that we talked about earlier. The oil might be warm, but the engine takes more time. Turning it off after a short ride can result in moisture and unburned fuel mixing with the oil, which again adds up over time. If you mostly go on trips that are less than 15 minutes long, consider a nice long 1-hour ride each week. It'll be good for the motor and it'll be good for your soul. Next thing is lugging the engine. For those of you who don't know, this simply means riding in a higher gear than you need to be in. If you're new to the T-Rex or motorcycle platforms, understand that this is not your Ford F-150. The rev range is much higher than you might expect, so learn where the appropriate range is, and then you can learn to ride by ear. That is, you know what the T-Rex is supposed to sound like in any given gear. Now, I know how much fun it is to ride to your own personal soundtrack, but if you never learn to ride by ear, I guarantee you're lugging the engine sometimes, which forces it to work much harder than it should. Know where your power band is and how to use it. Every motor will be slightly different, so it's important to understand where yours is. Next on my list, again in no particular order, is using cheap or incorrect fuel. Maybe this isn't so important if you're in the grocery getter, but in the T-Rex, it really does matter. There are so many fuel additives and octane options, and not every gas station offers the same selection. Your T-Rex has a minimum octane rating. My 23, for example, has a 91 minimum, and the owner's manual specifically warns about using low-quality fuel. So I would avoid ethanol where possible and refrain from using anything rated over E10 entirely. Next on my list is dirty air filters. Think about it. Remember how much fun it was when Fauci had us all wearing masks for no good reason? Your air filter is how your engine breathes. Clean it every chance you get, but at least every 200 miles or so, or after a really long or in buggy or dusty conditions. You don't have to replace it that often. The manual says to replace it around every 10,000 miles. And if you've been cleaning it faithfully and it looks good at 10,000 miles, replace it anyway. There are lots of particles that build up over time, and you might not be able to see all these things, but they're really inexpensive and they're easy to replace. A slowly suffocating engine is the fastest route to fouled plugs and rough performance. And speaking of fouled plugs, we should talk about dirty or failing spark plugs. Your spark plugs play an important role, and just like the other things listed, ignoring your plugs can lead to poor performance and expensive repairs. Follow the maintenance plan laid out in the owner's manual and don't skip the stuff you think is too challenging. The T-Rex community is great about this sort of thing, and new maintenance videos are popping up every day. Normal plug maintenance should take place just about every 3,000 miles, so keep an eye on your maintenance log. In your manual, it'll tell you everything that you need to know. Next on my list is skipping the valve clearance adjustment. According to my manual, the valve clearance should be checked and adjusted every 15,000 miles. Valve adjustments may seem intimidating, but your valves play a critical role in controlling airflow and fuel combustion. Even with the most conservative riding habits, these values can drift out of spec, and when that happens, you lose performance at best and can trash the engine completely at worst. Next, let's talk about overfilling or underfilling the oil. Just like your chain, there is a Goldilocks zone for the oil. Oil is the lifeblood of your engine, but too much or too little is all kinds of bad. On one side, there's too much pressure. On the other side, you've got metal on metal wreaking havoc on your motor. Don't guess or go by your gut. Use the right oil and keep your eye on that sight glass. Next on my list is ignoring the coolant. I know we've been talking a lot about running the T-Rex cold, but on the other side of that pendulum is also one of the worst things that you can do to a motor. While running cold oil and a cold motor causes a slow and expensive death, nothing kills a motor more completely or more quickly than running it hot. Your coolant is just as important as your oil. Your coolant gets corroded and breaks down over time. Avoid diluting your coolant or mixing brands and types. The T-Rex requires specific coolant formulas, so make sure to check with your dealer or buy a trusted coolant that's designed specifically for motorcycle engines. The last thing on my list, but certainly not the least, is ignoring chain maintenance. Your chain is that critical link between your engine and your rear wheel. Ignoring your chain not only leads to poor performance, but can really beat up your engine and wear out expensive components that would otherwise last a lifetime. A chain that is too tight or too loose can cause different kinds of damage. You really want to get this right every time you ride, so take care of that chain. Clean it, lubricate it, adjust it, and change it when necessary. If you've made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. I hope some of these tips help to keep your T-Rex running smooth and trouble-free for a lifetime. But what about you? What are some of your favorite tips for keeping your T-Rex running smoothly? Let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. As always, ride safely and be nice. See you out there.